all, and welcome to another session of Pragati Vichar Literature Festival's Authors Marathon. I'm having a wonderful panel curated with me, but before that, the sessions today is Parenting for the Future, Cultivating Resilient and Emotionally Healthy Children. And the theme is Building Resilience Through Literature. So with that, let me, quickly dive into the wonderful panel that I'm having. So first on the panel, we are having Rrashima Swaarup, author of Sleep, Sanity and Support. Sleep Support, in fact. So Rrashima Swaarup is a senior corporate analyst and is currently a senior director with a leading US-based business research and consulting organization. Rrashima has worked across a very diverse range of industry and functional segments and has tremendous experience in strategic and business research. Rashima is a prolific writer, columnist, and poet, as well as an award winning speaker and podcaster. She has participated in several leading literature festivals and moderated many prestigious book launches and panel discussions. Rashima, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Atisha. It's a pleasure.
Next on the panel, we are having Romal Surana, author of Awakening Parenthood Volume 1. Romal, a dedicated and compassionate counselor and remedial educator, boasts a proven track record in fostering holistic development. With an MBA in finance and marketing and specialized training in child and adolescent counseling, she brings a unique blend of financial acumen and psychological insight to her role. Romal's deep commitment extends to assisting homeschoolers and children with learning disabilities on a personal level. As a founder and CEO of Nangayan Foundation, she actively contributes to the mental and emotional well-being of individuals. Her accolades include prestigious awards such as Bharatiya Shiksha Padma Bhushan Puraskar and the Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Shiksha Sarvoj Samman. Co-author of 4 books and a certified practitioner in various therapeutic techniques, Romal leverages her practice to create a positive impact on the lives of those she serves. Romal, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Last on the panel, we are having Dr. Aruna Kalra, author of I Want a Boy. Dr. Aruna Kalra is an Indian gynecologist and obstetric surgeon, currently the director OB/GYN and senior gynecologist surgeon at CK Birla Hospital, Gurugram, and managing director of Mums Clinic, Gurugram. She specializes in minimally invasive gynecological such as robotic and laparoscopic surgeries on endometriosis, gynecological tumors, and paralabs. And as an obstetrician, taking care of high-risk pregnancies and vaginal birth after cesarean, VBAC. Thank you so much, Dr. Aruna, and I'm so sorry for
That's okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here.
Perfect. So with that, let's move on to the general questions round. And the first question that I'm having for all of you is, so parenting requires adaptability, especially when raising children with diverse emotional, psychological, and development needs. So how can storytelling serve as a universal tool to nurture resilience in all children, including those with special needs as well? So let's start with Dr. Aruna.
Okay, so parenting. So I'm a mother of two. Parenting again, as soon as you become a parent, a mother, you are a new parent. Okay, you have no idea. You're first time parent. Okay, so parenting again is a learning process where you also are learning how to raise your kids and how to be uh, uh, I think as a role model to them and make them or rear them as a responsible citizen. So they should be confident and they should be able to contribute to the society also. Having said that, it is a difficult and guilt-ridden job. And when you are raising your kids, you are always guilty that if you give them too much of love and liberty, you are scared that they might go wrong way. They become stubborn, and if you are too disciplined with them, sometimes you feel you're too strict, and now they are introvert and they are not able to talk for themselves or raise their concerns. So it is difficult. And when we raise our kids, first thing which I as a parent has learned is that you have to give them love, security, and kids are your own reflection. So the way you behave, they would be absolutely like you will be seeing your mirror image. What they So if you are respectful to your mother-in-law, parents-in-law, and their grandparents, they would also be respectful. If you read books, they would be reading books. If you are watching TV, they would be. And after a certain age, in fact, after 2-3 years, when they start talking and all, you have to treat them as adults. Okay, so they can speak for themselves, and you have to listen, because even if the concerns are very small for them, it is a big concern, and you have to be very serious about their concerns. You should treat them as an adult, and I think that's how. If you are treating them as an adult and giving them small responsibilities and letting them take their own decisions, and be there for their support by their side, I think I personally feel uh, this formula worked for me.
So, Romal, what's your take on this?
Say, being a mother, in a age where I was very, I would say I conceived my son very at very young age. So it was a very new experience altogether. But I feel with time, you see the parenting from your parents and you learn it from them. Because we are from the era wherein we try to give our children what we have already, that we have not received from our parents, and we try to give them. But the best part, what I felt was it should the combination of what we have received and what we really want to give to our children, so that there is a balance of both. I remember my childhood being from a joint family of almost 30 members, where the things would be shared. Sharing caring was not being taught. It was practically done, where mothers were actually busy, and they never, I mean, my mother never knew what I'm studying all upon. My so everything was very different. But when it comes to single-handedly handling one child, things are very different. So I received patience, tolerance, understanding from the family I belong to. But when it comes to nuclear, it becomes a task. And at that place, I feel storytelling plays a very vital role, because there you don't have actual people there. You have to create something imagination and tell your children, oh, there is a lion, there is a tiger, and this is how they behave, and how and what you want them to incorporate. It goes to storytelling, and storytelling plays a very vital role in not just the life of children, but also for us even to accept things. At times, we need to go through the storytelling. Storytelling is not just one way of it, because every time what fascinates us is the story. Netflix stories, movies stories, everything goes around stories. But with children, it is very, very important. Again, when it comes to parenting, my books talk about that awakening parenthood. It is a combination. It is the combination of the counselings that I have done. I have put it in a form of a story, compiled them, and have given to it. So it is not one way solution, but yes, it could be used in multiple ways. Different situation, different solutions. So storytelling and parenting has to go hand in hand, because that is how, and it's easy to work with children, and rather to work with our own self, we require those stories.
Right, very rightly said, learning from other experiences and the stories as well. So, Rashima, what's your take on this?
Right. So, Atisha, first of all, I would like to begin with a note of gratitude. Huge thanks to PVLF, Frontlist Media, for organizing this session. I know it's going to be very insightful. And the reason I'm on this session is because of my book, right? So, a big thank you to everybody who was a part of this journey. First and foremost, my literary agency, The Book Bakers, and my publisher, Om Books International. So it is thanks to them that this non-fiction account of my parenting journey actually came out and people were able to read it. Now, about your question, first of all, I have a slightly different take on this whole thing. I feel that it's wonderful to get input from what kind of parenting, from the kind of parenting that our parents inculcated, the values and the broadly speaking, the values that they inculcated in us when we were children. But I really feel as a young mother that nobody had parenting as difficult as we do, honestly. Because the kind of kids we are bringing up, there's so much external exposure. and so much external influence. So now, if I'm reading, my son may look at me and say, okay, I want to follow my mom's example. But then there is so much that he's also learning from outside. These children are so much more intelligent and smarter than we actually give them credit for. So I think the world has really changed. Our generation and our parents' generation, we've seen that change, from the kind of games we played to, social media and the whole digitalization that has happened to the pandemic. Look at what our kids have been through.
Hmm.
Now, about your question, there is a very interesting part to your question about children with special needs. And I really think that deserves mention here because it is something I constantly strive to make my child compassionate about, and it's something that we were not compassionate about. So we may think we weren't aware, really. We didn't know how to react as children. And then as teenagers, when we were growing up, we did not know how to react to people who had special needs. We didn't know that we were supposed to include them. Maybe we were conscious of the fact, or maybe we just didn't know what to say. But these children, I think, are so much more compassionate than we were in that sense. So yes, there is this little instance, and I feel that all life's lessons are learned through books. We did, and I'm sure our children are also learning a lot through reading. Well, reading, not books always, but they're reading a lot. Whether they're reading online or they're reading books or they're reading, their course material. There's a lot that they're reading, and schools are increasingly becoming more and more involved in this process also, which is really heartening to see. So there was this little anecdote that I'd like to share. So there was this boy, and my son is very good friends with him even now. He's moved to Canada now, but yes. And again, special needs is something which is so, there's a diversity to it. Everybody has a different kind of need. Now, there were certain, you could say, learning challenges there, and his reactions were a little different from what, say, somebody of 11 or 12 would expect, a friend or a peer would expect. So, there were these instances when my son couldn't understand why there was a lack of patience there, or why he reacted the way he did to certain situations. And this would cause fights between the two friends. And then one day, the child's mother gave me a book which she had actually authored. She had co-authored with the mother of another child who also had a similar challenge. And she told me, that instead of me or you telling your son what the issue is, if he reads this book, it will put a lot of clarity into his thought process. So I gave him the book, he read it, and you should have seen the way the equation turned after that. So instead of that one-on-one equation, it became a sort of, he was giving more, receiving less, and he was okay doing that. My son was okay doing that. So it was thanks to the book and the way that the story was told. So the protagonist was somebody who was like his friend, and was such an amazing transformation in the sense that his understanding of that situation improved so much after he read that. And that is when I realized that, what we tell them sometimes sounds like preaching to them, that the parent is saying it, or the mother or the grandmother or whatever. But if they're reading it and connecting with the character, which is what we all try to do, right? As authors, we want our readers to connect with the characters. So when that connection is made, that is when the compassion comes. And I feel storytelling, books, reading is so important as far as diversity and inclusion and compassion is concerned.
Hmm. Thank you so much for the wonderful answer, Rashma. So with that, let's move on to our next question. So resilience is often described as the ability to bounce back from adversity. So how can parents cultivate, this quality in their children while ensuring a balance between prote- protection and independence? So Romal, why don't you start first?
Let me give you an example of it before starting, because I feel examples play a very vital role. So, we are talking about resilience. Resilience happens when we really allow our children to do mistakes, because they are in a state of accepting the mistakes. Once a child know I can make mistake and I am able to overcome it, and nobody is going to judge me on it, they become more resilient about it. They become open to try new things. They are open to know what, because with experience they understand that. So the example here is, my son painted a picture which was completely black and blue, and he showed to me that see what I have drawn. After looking at that picture, which is only black and blue, what would be the reaction would be? Uh, Being a mother, I said, आपने बहुत अच्छे से बैलेंस किया है, not to justify it, but to be very honest, I have not understood what have you drawn. Because uh, I need to say my thoughts because I cannot be I can't give gratification each time. So I said, what you have colored, it's fine, but I don't understand what it is. He said, Mama, remember we were discussing yesterday about octopus. And when octopus leaves the ink, this is what it looks like, right? So the moment without understanding, if I would have shouted at him, Ki, what nonsense you have made, or what is it, without understanding his thought process, that would be something would have demotivated him.
Mm.
Similarly, at the time when he was learning chess, in the process of learning chess, he would lose while playing those games. And my husband would purposefully do that. He would not say, Ki, haan, jeet jao, it's a right time, you can win. He would not do that. The reason being, tomorrow, the world where he's gonna be, he needs to face those challenges. He needs to be there where he has to upgrade his competency. So it should start from your home, wherein yourself, you push your child in such a way, in a healthy way, he understands, okay, it's okay, but you have to again come back and do a second match. My son is studying in inclusive school. The reason of giving the examples of my child, because these are the examples which I have seen in my day-to-day life and similarly resonating with them. And this is how my parenting has been. My son has studied in inclusive in an inclusion school where he was a buddy of a special need child. And being a special need child who was his buddy would hit him a lot of time because it's for them the social interaction becomes a challenge. They can't express themselves in a way they want to. Even if they are excited, they hit at times, and which is very hard. To overcome that situation, he would cry and come back, Mama, वो बहुत मारता है. But he's a buddy, he has that certain responsibility, and he needs to come back and needs to take care of himself, yet he needs to be independent. So I told him certain tricks that he can do or certain measures to be taken. After following that, there was a transition where the child with special need, I'll not say the child with special need, but A would follow my son the way he is, and the bonding between them was very strong after that. And in the whole way, when there is a challenge, when he is not in his behavior, where there is certain tantrums or a behavioral challenge that a child is showing, my son would take care of it. So, in this way, if you don't let the things go, you help your children to overcome the situation, feel the failure, and come back. We are actually building up their emotional intelligence. We are making them feel that yes, there are small steps to come back. It's okay to fall. And through this, that is what I'm to say, because in today's generation, if a lot of gratification, instant gratification is
Mm.
given, and that is the one reason that we don't see the tolerance level, the resilience in our children. They want everything instant. And that's why the dopamine level are increasing for everything. So if we give them little patience, let them feel bored, let them do the same thing repetitively, the resilience will definitely built in them at the right age, and it increases with the age.
Right. Just to add on to your answer, like just a follow-up question from my side. So there's a concept of shadow as well, for the children who are like, having these special needs. So in your answer, you have explained like how there's a buddy system with your child. So what are your views on this shadow system as well for the, for the children?
So you're talking specifically about, see, shadow is something which schools really encourage for special needs,
Right.
wherein you have shadow teachers who's taking care of the child, being with the child for a long time, because children, now when we talk about special needs, we have a lot of things in special needs.
Hmm.
When there is autism. Now, autism is a spectrum,
Yeah.
right? And it has different categories to it: mild, moderate, and severe. And in certain cases where teachers are not that in special schools, we have helping hands coming in. But when in inclusion school, you have typical children and atypical children together in a same classroom. So at that case, at times the teachers are not that accommodative or not being that trained. That time we require the shadow teachers to help them to assist the child
Okay. Sure.
in the process of learning, and they are there, and the shadow teacher could be mother even, or it could be a known person who is little aware of the child behavior and can help the child to get adjusted to that environment if something triggers, because what triggers we really don't know, and when that things triggers, the behavioral challenge come out in different forms.
Hmm. Right. Right. So, with that, let's hear from the doctor herself. So, Dr. Rana, what do you think? How can parents actually cultivate this quality in their children, and what would be your take on the role of shadow teacher for the children as well?
Okay, so the thing is that resilience or tolerance or all these um, qualities, uh, yes, they should first. I always say that they should first learn from their parents. Uh, and we as parents, like we had difficult childhood, or we were lower middle class, or we grew after studying and after so much of hard work in our life. Uh, Once they see that, and we should not hide all these things from. So I would all tell my through my practical experiences, as other authors are telling. So so I was when I my parents were lower middle class, and we only had a bicycle, and my father used to carry us on bicycle to our school and all. So the same thing I would tell them, even if they have lots of luxury today, but they should understand that how we grew, and our hardship and our journey, and they should not take anything for granted. And for everything or anything, if they are asking, they should earn first those things, like either with their good behavior or with or whatever way. They should earn, they should not feel that this is their right to have. And if they do not get, if do not do work at certain behavior is not maintained, or discipline is not maintained, I think they should understand that this is actually acceptable if they are not given the, or they have not earned their whatever perks
Right.
they wanted. So that was one thing. And another thing is that in as the ma'am also said, that yes, in schools there are now inclusion schools, and special need children are there, and they are also sitting amongst them, and there also they learn a lot, and they have empathy, they have uh, they actually feel that kinship is there, and they understand that the special need child is not able to perform, or their emotional needs are different. And when they come home and they tell you stories that he or she could not perform today, and I helped them on the stage, or I helped them with their they were not able to write, and I helped them to write their exams and all. That's very good of schools what they are doing. And as a doctor, I would urge here to parents that and when these parents, when I have delivered their children and they are 2 or 3 years old, and they are coming to my clinic again when they are second time pregnant, and this child is given phone, and child is busy with the phone, with the screen, and this is one way communication, and these kids, and I actually feel a right on that child, that I have delivered this child, and this is my right. I just tell them, parents, to please take away this phone, break this phone just in front of me, in front of this child, that this is not important at all. And I have seen these kids getting, they are brilliant, they have brilliant childhood, they are very sharp kids till the age of 2 or so. But once they are given phone, because house helps are raising them, or because grandparents are, they do not have that kind of energy to feed them without phone or without screen. And as somebody said, that autism is so common nowadays, and there's a spectrum of autism, and it's only because of we are giving so much of screen. So I would urge parents that please do not give them screen, do not give them mobile phone, or like you should have time. If you have delivered a child, if you have given birth to a child, you should have time to mold or to raise or to have quality time with your child. So, and when you have child, like when we were growing up, our grandparents, my dadi or nani, would tell stories, and even today we remember those stories and we share those stories with our kids. We don't have those stories. I think we are not reading much of Mahabharata or Ramayana. Whatever we know is through TV
Hmm.
shows. But our grandparents had lots of stories of wisdom, Panchatantra, and everything. And they actually narrated those stories at each and every point when we were going through either tough time in our life, whether it was a difficult exam or difficult friendship or something breakup. They had every time they had a story to tell, and every time we could actually gather some wisdom. Uh, but if these kids are they are raised on screen, they are only getting one side, the flashy light and the stories. They are not contributing to it. They are not using their brain. They are not using their creativity. And I think that's very, very important. And books and grandparents and all the storytellers, they are playing great role in their I think how they are molded nowadays and how they are becoming. So I would say that the screen should be no, and books and other storytelling methods should be available to kids when we are raising them.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Rana. With that, let's move to Rashima. Rashima, what's your take on this?
So I feel, see, my understanding of this is there is in fact a chapter dedicated to um, patience, resilience, and acceptance in a way in my book, and how parents have to sort of lead by example. I think it starts right when your child is born, and as a mother, you strive to be super mom. That whole concept of super mom, I think it's a big myth, right? Because we're constantly putting pressure on ourselves to perform the impossible. And that is a kind of input that then gets passed on to our children in a world that is highly, highly competitive. They have to understand that life isn't perfect and that failure is something that is a part of life. So, I was watching this Instagram reel, and this was an interview with Sushmita Sen. And something that she said really struck a chord with me. So they asked her, "How are you so unafraid of failure?" And she said, "Well, it's going to catch up with us somewhere, sometime. It catches up with everyone. What is the definition of success? What is the definition of failure?" And it really depends on how you define it. It's a subjective term. Both of them are subjective terms. So if we can teach our children that failure is something, success and failure is something which will come and go, I think automatically they learn resilience, they learn acceptance, and they learn to compete in a very competitive world. See, I feel technology and the screen, as we call it, is a double edged sword. Okay, so yes, there are a lot of cons to it. And I don't particularly subscribe to the idea of, there's something I've written also. It's a little pun in my book where I'm not going to leave my child to his own devices. So here the word devices obviously means whether it's his laptop or his phone, and it also means leave him to what he wants to do. We have to guide them as parents, but at the same time I feel there's a lot of information that they're imbibing, and a lot of it, if you are able to sift it out, there's a lot of good information there also. Now I feel that when I compare myself to what my son is, say at 14, he's almost 14, he's 13 and a half, I feel there's so much more he understands. There is a maturity about him which I didn't have. Now, whether we want to call it innocence, that we were a more innocent, unaware generation, and the fact that they are a lot more capable of handling themselves, and he is, both from the emotional point of view as also from the practical point of view. I feel he is capable of going on a school trip. He was capable of going on a school trip at an age when I wasn't prepared. Tomorrow, when I send him out into the world and he goes in for his college admissions, I am a more confident mother than my mom was when I went to study abroad. So So I think all those things, they are a resilient generation. They are able to handle a lot more than we did. That whole idea of heartbreak and emotional meltdowns, I think we faced that a little a little differently than what they do. So yes, they are definitely a resilient generation. As parents, we just have to set the right example. So if I don't do a work presentation well, if I come back and I constantly crib about it, he's listening, and he knows that somewhere my mother lacks acceptance. She doesn't want to accept the fact that she has messed up, at work today. But if I come back and I take it in my stride and I say, oh, it's just another day, and tomorrow is a better day, and I'll do better. I'll strive to do better. That is also input that he will learn from. So, what do I believe? Maybe 50% input from home and 50% from outside. So, when you put all that together, you get a lethal cocktail of emotions and vulnerability and reactions. So, these children are very reactive. And that is something that we need to channelize properly. That, okay, if they are reacting, what kind of input can we give them? And I think the best part is that schools and parents should work together, as much as possible. Because I see that in my son's school, he goes to DPS International, and I see that they are so involved in the learning process and constantly trying to teach them things like, how to care for the environment. Look how environmentally conscious these children are. I have learned to save water from my son. It's not something I was ever conscious about. I have learned not to pollute the environment from him. So there's a lot of two-way learning that goes on. And yeah, that's how we, I think, inculcate values in each other. So we also learn values from our kids and they learn from us. That's how it works for me.
Right. So, drawing inspiration from all of your answers. So, one thing that struck me was as the generation is becoming more resilient, the issues are also becoming the new age. So, earlier at times, there was nothing called as new age addiction or behavioral addictions. Which actually includes gaming, gambling, porn, etc., social media. So, what would be your take, as an activist, as an author, as a doctor, as a counselor, what would be your take, how do you deal with these situations? So, Dr. Aruna, why don't you start first?
In my practice, I would start because I have lots of stories from my practice. In my practice, there was a girl who came to me and who said that I'm sex addict. And she was a college girl, and she came to me for sexually transmitted disease, and she was suffering from repeated urinary tract infections and STDs. Uh, and She was absolutely honest, and she was straightforward that she is going through some anxiety or something, and she is taking counseling sessions as well as therapy, but still she has constant thought of sex in her mind. She was just 19 years of age, and as you said that, yes, gaming or pornography or all these things, there is a lot of addiction. And One thing which is very, very important, like this girl came and she came without her parents, and she knew that she needs some help, and that help, I might be the person, because she was already going to counselor and psychiatrist, and she said that some way, please help me. If you can put me on hormonal tablet, and if that thought or that desire, whoever I meet, whoever boy I meet, I just want to have sex with. So if that thought can be averted, if you can de-addict me from that thought, that would be so good. And the best part, which I understand and I come across nowadays, that kids are becoming so responsible for themselves, like and social media has to play a lots of role here, because on social media, as we now say that Insta Institute or Facebook Institute, so if there's lots of information, and I think we have lots of appetite for every kind of information, because when you say all around you, you see that people are just glued to their phone, whether it is informative or not, they're just scrolling it down, and some or the other kind of information they are imbibing or absorbing. So there is lots of information. They are getting that information, and some good doctors like me also. I'm putting on Insta small reels just to tell them, guide them that if there is lots of 90% information is from a source which is not very responsible, which is not very reliable. And as a doctor, what I'm because I'm also putting reels and making them that you have to use contraception, and if you are going through such kind of genital issue or such kind of sexually transmitted or this, uh, she actually saw one of my reel, and then she took out my number, and she fixed the appointment. And that's very good and very responsible that young people, young boys and girls, couples at the age of 17, 18, if they are couples together, they are coming and they are asking that some kind of contraception which is safe, please tell us. So as you said that, yes, addiction is there, whether it's screen addiction, whether it's pornography addiction or other kind of addiction. But many young kids are aware about it, and if you just guide them right, like one thing, very important thing is that you should not be judgmental. Like if she came to me, she thought that this doctor should help me, and if I was judgmental, I was like, how can you do that? This is so irresponsible of you. How? See, I should not. And I should always be, I should listen to her story. She is suffering, even if she was not guilty of it, and she was just telling me that I if this was a different girl, and if she would say that I am having sexually transmitted disease, I had this situationship and I had sex in a party after drinking and all, instead of judging her, I should just guide her that, okay, what all tests to be done to check whether you have any kind of sexually, or you have acquired any kind of sexually transmitted disease, and how to protect yourself if at all you are pregnant or you might be pregnant. I should not be judging. Otherwise, they would stop coming to us. They cannot go to their parents because as we are traditional people, traditional parenting, 90% of parents, I don't think would listen, or they would definitely be absolutely angry or annoyed with them. So if they cannot go to their parents, what is left? They would go to their friends and they would talk to them, and friends have the same kind of knowledge what they have. So if they are coming to you, you should be responsible. You should listen to them, give them some solution. Do not judge them. So whenever, wherever, like if they go to psychiatrist, to a counselor, to a gynecologist, or so, to somebody who they feel that can help them, they should not be judgmental. They should always be really patient and should listen to them and guide them. Because as a parent, as an elder person, I know that their frontal lobe is not formed yet. The logical brain is not formed yet. And they are all hormonal and they are naive. They are very innocent. What they are doing is all at hormonal level. So we have to uh, help them as elders, like, because we have to become at that point of time their parent, their doctor, their guide, their mentor, so that every time they should be able to come to us. They should feel secure around us, and we should be one non-judgmental. Another, we should be confidential. We should not let their parents know that. It should be a very confidential information. If it is not life threatening, it should be confidential. So that's how we can help them as a elder or as responsible parents.
Right. No, we have to create that non-judgmental and safe space for them to share and open up the feelings. So one more thing which I would like to add on is like we cannot like we are in an era where we cannot actually replace the screen time. But instead of doom scrolling, we'll have to replace it with mindfulness content,
Mm.
which is more impactful and informative. So with that,
Yeah.
let's hear from Romal as well. Romal, what are your insights into this?
See, what I feel and what I have been observing, we humans are meant to have, we all move away from pain and we work towards our pleasures, right? And this is how the whole human anatomy is. We really work for that. If I see pain in studies, I will have more inclination to do something that gives me pleasure. Maybe it could be sports, it could be watching TV. So the whole games that starts, it's with pain and pleasure. Where do I see a pain and where do I see a pleasure? And that is the place where the addiction starts. When I'm inclined towards having a pleasure, for example, my self esteem is low and I've seen some XYZ, my influential person, having a cigarette. To gain that self esteem, I started with that addiction, and somebody praised me at that time. Oh wow, you really look hot, or that's really good what you are doing. That kicks me, that gives me a pleasure. So to get out of that zone, I'm going to have that. So if we really want to understand the addiction root cause is the pain and pleasure game, which is happening all together. It deals with uh, substances that children or any individual consumes. It deals with your instinct of what ma'am said, of having the intimacy with someone else, or with also with the screen. What are we doing when we scroll the uh, reel or the shorts? We are expecting something good to happen, right? Something new, unexpected thing to happen. So actually, we are not working on a one hormone, that is dopamine. We really don't know how to regulate it, and when it gains a certain threshold, we are already in a cycle of having addiction. The moment the child comes home, the first thing he picks up is the mobile if mother is not addressing to it. It's a sign of addiction. So there are few things, if we understand what is the trigger for that addiction, we can help the child or a person to come out of it. Whether it's drinking tea or a coffee even. What triggers me to multiply that thought? That trigger needs to be addressed. And the shift of pain and pleasure, which is happening all the time, that creates that momentum of having or consume that thing, multiple thing, because that's giving me pleasure. But after a certain time, it becomes a hurdle for me. For the example what my ma'am told about that girl, that after a certain time she realized it, because she was not getting that pleasure which was she used to get it earlier, because now she understood it. This cycle happens to us multiple times and we have conditioned our mind accordingly. So as a counselor, as a child and adolescent counselor, or as a therapist, what do we suggest? Whenever a person comes to us for an addiction, whether it's screen, whether it's coffee, whether it's tea, whether it's cigarette, or a substance that a child or a person consumes, we need to first identify what triggers it. What is the root cause of it? Once we identify that, it's easy to work on it. Parents, we have less time, so our screen time is particularly less. So children see us that whenever parents are free, they scroll. But majority of our children have a lot of available time with them. So they have developed this process of scrolling it. But while scrolling it, initially it was easy for them because that was giving them the pleasure. But later, we as parents, we really don't know how to control it. So we purposefully snatch the mobile or switch off the screen. That again creates a downfall of the dopamine altogether, and your children start crying.
Hmm.
Top of your voice, and there is a tantrum, there is a behavioral issue. And similar things are reinforced multiple times, the addiction increases. So we need to, what ma'am said is absolutely true. We cannot be judgmental, but we need to understand the trigger also along with it, to help the children or an individual to come out of it and to face the world in a reality way. Because addiction in any which ways, you are still playing game with yourself, and to satisfy certain sense of yours, you are abusing your whole body and your environment. Right?
So with that, let's hear from Rashima as well. Rashima, what's your point of this?
See, I feel that all of us, no one is really above addiction, right? There's always something we're all addicted to. I mean, I'm addicted to coffee. We were talking about tea and coffee. And social media, I think, again, our generation is also addicted to it. I mean, we all have our dedicated time for our Facebook or our Instagram or what have you. Some of us are work addicts also, and children see that their parents are constantly on their laptops. Now, I'm going to give you a very, very practical tip. And because after what ma'am said, Aruna ma'am said, and what Romal said, I think there was a lot of structure to what they said. What I have here is a very practical tip from a hands on mother who's seen it working. See, Romal just mentioned that children have a lot of time. Well, they also have a lot of energy. If we are able to channelize that time and energy into something that they're passionate about, then the passion will take over the addiction, right? And in my case, in my son's case, it's sports that works. I think it's a fantastic thing. And again, it's a very, very doable thing for most parents. You have a lot of facilities available now. If your child is into sports or into music, I'm sure there's something positive that every child shows an inclination for. My son was, and how much can we really blame them when it comes to technology addiction or social media? Because, come on, let's look at it this way. Let's face it, they went through a pandemic. None of us as children went through a pandemic. And I recall myself that I used to consciously make an effort to help him to connect with his peer group during the pandemic. It was so important. So if it was through technology, be it, as long as he was able to connect with his peer group and talk to them and stay in touch with them, it was worth it for me. And then what did we want? Right after the pandemic gets over, we want them to snap back, bounce back, and go back to life as they knew it. Well, that doesn't happen. It can't happen like that. These are children and young adults. And again, I think it was football, which was my biggest savior because right after things opened up, my son discovered this love for football, and today he's a very, very talented footballer. So you can, and now that is also a different kind of addiction, but it's a positive addiction. He loves playing football, at least an hour and a half every day. He goes to the academy also 3 times a week, and it takes a lot of time away from the screen. He's not interested in social media because he knows, okay, after school, I have 4 hours, out of which I got to study for an hour. And I have to keep an hour and a half aside for my football. So then that doesn't leave him any time. So if we channelize this excess energy and all the excess time that they have, if we help them to channelize it correctly, I think that is the biggest solution to this problem. Yeah, that's very practical. You could say I'm a practical mother. I believe that the challenges of parenting and the challenges of bringing children up in the digital age are huge. And like I said before, I think we have the toughest task, compared to our parents. I tell my mother, I know, you think I'm doing a lot of wrong things here, but you really didn't have the same challenges that I did. So keeping all that in mind, all those permutations and combinations, I think something positive. So whether it is music or football, I mean, sports,
Right.
whatever a child is passionate about, help them, encourage them in that direction and help them to use their time productively.
Hmm. Thank you so much for the practical advice, Rashima. So, while I do want this discussion to go on and on, I'm just having one more question for all of you. Then we can start with the individual question round. So my next question is addressed to parents. So basically, many parents struggle with self-doubt and guilt. So how can they navigate their own emotional challenges while providing the support their children needs? So it could be a tough task, but let's hear from the experts as well. So Romal, why don't you start first?
So this is a very wonderful question because a lot of mother goes to this guilt. But I feel that the era that we are in, we are more capable and we have all resources to do that. But as mother, we need to understand that we are not superhumans. We are beings that can make those can make mistakes, and our challenges are different as ma'am said, right? So our mothers were different, we are different, and our children are very, very different. What I feel when I started working, my son was just 3 years old when I started working again. So a lot of people said just 3 year old, you need to be at home, you need to nurture the child, you need to be there. But I feel wherever I go, my child is there with me. He learns throughout in the whole process. The environment plays a very vital role because wherever the session is, if the child is there with me, the child adjusts. He understands the environment. He understands what the work profile of mother is. Having said that, in this years now, my son is 11-year-old. He's a TEDx speaker. He is an author. All these things have been incorporated. If just I have not been at home doing this, putting him different classes, but he was along with me in the journey where he himself put up, he learned new things by his own self. He's a wonderful badminton player. He experiments new things. He wants to do everything because in every process he was involved with me. Though in traditional cases, we were not involved. But in today's, he was involved in everything, whether it was banking, he's going along with me to bank. He know how to withdraw money, where to deposit a slip. If we are going to a doctor, what needs to be there. If somebody comes, how to make an online, order or something. From that phase, from an online phase to a practical thing, in everywhere, if your child is involved with you in a process, or whether it's doing household things, I don't think as mothers we need to be feeling guilty. Oh, I'm telling my son to cook. Initially, it would be अपने लड़के को काम करने कैसे लगा दिया? That was a thought process that my mother had it. कि my son should not do, my daughter should learn. But that has changed over a period of time. My child should know cooking, be it girl or a boy, at this era today. So, this wrong form, that wrong thought process, which is there in the mind when you are working mothers or not working, but because every woman is working at home. So it's not that if you are there at home, you're not working, you are still working, and a lot of things you have to manage. If you involve the children in the process that you are doing, this guilt will not come because you are shaping your children in a very different way. And that is required. Today, initially, what I remember, we were from a joint family, we were 8 to 10 cousins. But today, my child doesn't have that privilege of having 7 to 8 cousins. But we are not in a society when we have 7 to 8 different children from different backgrounds, where he can learn and adjust a lot of things. We have to give them liberty, as well as we need to mold them, allow them to learn a lot of things from the environment, involving them in the process of learning with you. That this is a house where that belongs to all, not to a one person. Then I don't think that as mother, I have any guilt of allowing my child even to clean a washroom. I am guilty. Oh, I said this to my son. I am expecting this from him. No, it is what the process is, and he should learn. This is what I feel, and this is what I have done with my child. And this sense of guilty doesn't come because at times, yes, when I am working, he has learned how to play, how to independently play, how to organize, how to structure his work, because all time mama is not available or papa is not available. When they are not available, how to do the things by himself, he had figured it out himself. If not given the opportunity, keep spoon feeding कि अभी तुम ये कर लो, तुम वो कर लो. I don't think the independent person he is today, he would be. So as mothers, if you keep away that guilt and let the child learn in the process, we will have a better society. So the empowerment will not be just of women, but equally we will have empowered men to take
Men as
care
well,
of that empowered woman.
Thank you so much, Romal. So with that, let's move to Rashima. Rashima, what's your point on this?
So, Adisha, I have a chapter called How to Bust the Super Mom Myth, since we're talking about guilt. I think the whole idea of guilt comes from that, because we over expect from ourselves as mothers. And I think women are a little more prone to feeling guilty all the time. It's just something that I think it's a biological thing. And then the moment we become moms, it just gets multiplied. Now, and I will say this that in India, we have this tendency to center everything around our children, and from the word go, we make them feel like they are the center of our universe, which they are. But then it takes them a while to understand that they're not the center of everyone's universe, or the universe per se. So, what Romal said is absolutely correct, to be practical about it, to involve them in the everyday, day to day activities is so important because it gives them a sense of grounding and it gives us more time. And I think eventually what we have is young people who are aware of the world that they're living in and who are aware of their responsibilities, both girls and boys. I also feel self love plays a huge part in this, because women you have this list, right? We all make lists, and women are really good at it. So we have this should do list, to do list, and you will see that their own, things that pertain to their own well-being is always at the bottom of that list. And it could be something as small as, a visit to the saloon, or something as big as finishing what you need to finish, for your work, say a presentation. Now, we'll always put our families, we'll always put our children um, right on top, and it's great to do that. But self-love, consciously practicing self-love is really important. Bust that supermom myth. I've compared it to the myth of Santa Claus and the myth of the tooth fairy. And what I've said in my book is that it's even worse for Supermom because Santa Claus only has to perform his crazy duties once a year. Yeah, but Supermom has to perform 24/7. So there is no such thing. I think it's lovely to see fathers also stepping into their role now with greater enthusiasm. They want to be a part of the parenting journey. And I have addressed that in the book as well. Birthing a Father, it's called. So involve your partner, be kind to yourself, allow things to slide, don't beat yourself up over it. Guilt is something which is, it's a very normal human emotion, and we feel it all the time. So learning to sort of deal with it, I think, is the first step. Accept that you're not a super being. You are a human being and you're bound to make mistakes. There will be times when homework assignments will not be submitted on time. You will need to order and take out. You can't have a sane mind and a perfect house and a perfect work environment all the time. The world is tougher and getting tougher as we speak. Surviving in this world is not easy for anyone, I think. And women are really, really, because when we stepped into the workplace, the first thing that happened was that should have happened was a balance. Now that didn't happen. No, women were working, but they were also expected to do everything at home, which was really, I think it was terrible. So what you saw was this entire generation of exhausted ladies who were trying to contribute to the family income. And at the same time, they were also expected to come home at 8 o'clock in the night and cook dinner for the entire family. So that's just a scenario I'm painting. And this made them believe that they were capable of doing this.
Hmm.
And then what happens? You end up a frustrated, resentful person. At the end of the day, you're not a happy person yourself because you really weren't fair to yourself. So, self love, I think, is so important. Consciously practice it. Set aside, whether it is 10 minutes or half an hour, every day, a little bit of time to do something that you enjoy, whether it is just listening to a piece of music or reading a little bit from a book that you're enjoying or sitting in silence and meditating. And just allow people to scream outside if they want to scream for something. Even while we're talking, my son wants something right now, and I'm consciously ignoring him because I've told him that 11 to whatever time I'm busy and he can't disturb me. So that's how it is. I think guilt is not something I do not believe in it. I have gone through it for too many years and realized that nothing changed. All I was doing was beating myself up over something that was so unimportant the next day. So yeah, prioritize and practice self-love.
Such a strong statement. Thank you so much. So with that, let's move to Dr. Aruna. What's your take on this?
Um, so yes, both of them are absolutely right. But still, see, when I give a newborn, I hand it over to a mother, new mother. I know that I tell them this is, see, parenting or motherhood is a guilt-ridden job, and don't beat yourself up, as these ladies are also telling that. Um, because what happens is that as soon as you have your baby in your lap, you feel that this is your flesh, your blood, and you have to take care of that baby. So you don't even trust your parents, you don't even trust your spouse with that baby. If they are holding the baby in a different manner, you would always be suspicious that, see, her leg or arm is getting twisted and you're not holding the baby right. And even if it's your father who actually loved you so much, who raised you with so much of love, you won't trust him with your child. And because you feel so much of responsibility on your head, a minute before you were a girl and a minute after you are a mother. And as soon as you're a mother, your oxytocin and prolactin and every hormone is so built up in your brain and in your heart that you can't take it out. So with me also, like when I delivered my first child, I was just 22, and then it was again. I thought that this girl, I have to take care of her, and I did not sleep for straight 3 months. I did not lie down straight because she would not lie down on the bed. She would be all the time suckling on my breast. And the same thing happened when I delivered after 9 years, my child, second child. When he was growing up, around 6 or 7 years old, he actually rushed back from the park, and he came to the kitchen. I was cooking something and said, I want to have a knife, and I would kill them. I would stab them. I was like, "Kisko marne ja rahe ho? Whom are you going to kill?" He said, "They are not fair with me, and they're not making me a part of their game and everything." I was really shocked. He was just 7. I called my psychologist and that counselor friend. I asked her that, see, my son, he's just 7 and he's going to kill someone. If I was not there, he would have taken the knife and stabbed someone in the park. And then, when shall I bring him to counseling session? She said, he doesn't need counseling. You need a counseling session. She said, you should come and get the counseling. And when I went to her, she said that, as Romal said, that there is a trigger point. There is some trigger which had triggered him to do that kind of action. And she said, because you're not available throughout the day, you are in the hospital, and he is not able to vent out whatever he has to tell from morning till evening. He is coming out from the school, and he has nobody to tell all his stories and all his grief or whatever happened in the school. So you should stop working for some time, give some attention, take sabbatical or something. So that's what it was. And today, when he's in National Law University, Bangalore, he's doing so good. Today, again, I don't know, I just cannot get out of that guilt, even if Rashma is saying that no, there should not be a guilt. Uh, Today, when I see that he said that I don't feel like going to debate. He's law student and he should be doing debates and all. And he said that he doesn't feel like he's good with competition and all other things, but he doesn't like debate. And I was like, oh, as a mother, I should have taken to more outings or family gatherings, or I was not there, and I was not taking to many competitions or many all these programs. And I think that is why you're so introvert and you are not able to debate. And then he reminded me that, Mom, you took me for piano lessons, you took me for cricket lessons, and I was going for cricket lessons, and you took me everywhere. You made me learn so many things. It is what I am, it is what I feel, it is who I am. You just cannot change me. You don't take the guilt of it. You did whatever you could. And stop beating about like stop beating yourself up for my whatever liking is or how I am right now. I am good. You don't have to feel guilty about it. And this is absolutely true. Like again, I tell you one of the story. One of my patient who came, and she was so sad that her 22-year-old son, he just resigned from a very good job. And she was like, somewhere he is a single child. We could not give give him that confidence that he could go to office or he could make friends, or because he was a single child, and we could not do what we should have done. We should have had a second child. And the son said that it's not that there was a toxic environment, and I didn't want to lose my sanity. I know I'm a responsible person, and it's just 22. I would want to travel. Would want to travel and see the world instead of just wasting my life in that toxic environment at the age of 22. And don't again beat yourself and be guilty about it, that you did not rear me good, or I should have a sibling. So see, parents at every age, they feel guilty about how they reared their children, whether it was me or my patients. So I think, as Rashima said and Romal said, that we should actually stop beating ourselves up. Whatever we did, we gave them love, security, attention, our time, and we took care of their health, their studies. As a parent, we were also new, we were also learning. And I don't think any parent would give less love or security to their kids. And they should stop feeling guilty about their parenting.
Right. I'm just in between. I'm just taking down the notes for my future son or the daughter. So with that, we are a little over the time, and I'll just quickly move to the individual questions that I have for all of you. So my first question is for Rashima. So in your book, In Sleep Support and Sanity, you highlight the balance between emotional well-being and practical parenting. So what advice do you have for parents struggling to maintain their own mental health while meeting the growing demands of raising children?
See, I have no advice, okay, because I am also learning as a mother. And to be honest, my book is not, it's not, well, it is a self-help book, but it's more of, a sort of friend to tell mothers, fathers that we're all in the same boat. You're not struggling alone. We've all been through the same struggles. Now, when I wrote the book, my son was younger. Now he's older. So, what I can see is a completely different phase of parenting that I'm going through. And the challenges are also different. Bringing up children in a balanced way, making sure, and what Dr. Aruna also said right now, is that all parents do their best. Most parents do their best. The first thought I have in the morning when I wake up is my son, you know, and that's also my last thought before I sleep. So, as a person, as a mother, what more can I do? That is, it just shows that despite what I said earlier, he is the center of my universe. And it's my constant waking thought as well. So, keeping things in mind, keeping the kind of world that we're living in mind, the challenges are many. I think leaning on a support system is really important, which is why the second word of my book's title is support. Sleep, support, and sanity. Support is very important. And where does it come from? It can come from your spouse. It can come from, family and friends. It can come from other parents who are in similar situations. And very importantly, it can come from a structured support group. And we see a lot more of that happening in India also now. I think it's really important to have a structured support group where you can go and without judgment, talk. Talk to other parents, discuss with them, raise the questions that you're facing. And again, it's very difficult to be honest because, again, you're always in fear of being judged. You always feel that, oh, my son or my daughter did not do as well at her math exam, this one did better. Or, my child is the one who's, having a meltdown in the park every evening. And what are the other parents thinking? So, a safe space where you can actually go and talk to other parents, exchange information, have an outlet. I think it's so important to do that. And the book addresses all that. I think, rather than telling you right now, since we're short on time, my advice would be to read Sleep Support and Sanity. And while I hold this up, because it is very dear to me, it's my own personal account of raising my son. Once again, I would like to thank the book makers and Om Books International for bringing the book out. I think it's been a tremendously rewarding experience for me to put it all down there. It was like it started off as a diary. I used to write these when I became a mom. I started maintaining a journal, and every night I would pen down a little bit of what I was going through because those were the 3 a.m. conversations I was having with myself when everyone else was asleep, and I seemed to be the only one in the world who was awake and not getting sleep. So I started writing it down. And when I spoke to my literary agent and my friend Suhail Mathur, and I told him that, Suhail, I'm maintaining this diary. He said, just send it to me because you never know, it may have the scope of becoming a book. So I remember sending him snippets, and he said, this is amazingly honest and refreshingly practical advice. It's refreshing practical advice that I'm sure other parents will benefit from. So write it in a more structured way, and let's see if we can make a book out of it. And yeah, I mean, soon enough, the book was out. And I think the response has been great because people, what they've said is that they are able to connect. It's not a preachy book. It will not tell you this works and this doesn't work. The book will merely tell you, this is what I have gone through. You're not alone. If you're going through the same, hang in there. It's a community of mothers. It's a community of parents. New age parenting is not easy. So yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Support.
Thank you so much, Aruna, and really congratulations on the perfect response you're getting. So with that, I'm having the next question for Romal. So as a counselor and an author of Awakening Parenthood Volume 1, you have worked extensively with parents and children facing unique challenges. So what is your advice for parents navigating learning disabilities or behavioral issues while maintaining a positive and empowering relationship with their children?
See, when you say this word disability, it already has the word ability, right? So I think rather than focusing more on this, we should focus more on the ability that the child has, and every child is unique in its own way. So every child is unique, every child has its own ability. We need to first take out the lens of a general opinion and look at the specific abilities that a child has. As a parent, uh, I will definitely say that don't pray fall to the general random opinions that people make that a perfect child should be like this. Rather than accept and acknowledge what abilities my child has and work on it to improve it day by day. Nobody is perfect, and perfection is an illusion, right? It is a perfect illusion. We all have made a perfect daughter should be like this, a perfect mother should be like this. What I believe is every human being is imperfect, but the roles we have make perfect, and we try to mix match those imperfect thing in a perfect thing, and that is what the problem comes with. So as a parent and as the beauty that universe has given us, that every child is unique, every person is unique, we should follow the instinct of appreciating and accepting the people that we are with, the child that we have with. In a course of time where we have been, I mean, counseling from past 10 years, with multiple parents being helped upon, the book which I have written is all about the encounters that I had with parents, with what they were struggling for. So, what solutions I have given, or the things that I have done with my parenting and that had worked with them, it's what is there in the book. So it was just, I used to write one story a day after a counseling session, I would keep it. So that same thought, I shared it with Ritz World, Radhika, and she said, yes, let's go ahead and do it. And she has really worked hard in putting up those pictures, making it more vibrant for the readers to go through it and relate with it. And the book has really it's really doing good. Who has those who have read that, they have given me this feedback that they resonate with every word. The book is as simple as anyone can read and understand if they know English. So there's nothing, no jargons, nothing, but as simple a story as somebody's telling a story and they're resonating with it. So this is what the book talks about. And a lot of gratitude to Frontline Media for giving me this platform to speak about my book and to express my views. And once again, a lot of gratitude to my publications, Ritz World, Radhika especially, because she has really worked hard of getting this work, uh, out and send it to the people to read it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And in a separate discussion, what I remembered was, a greatest feedback for any book could be that it resonates with the reader and it is easy to understand, which I think all of your books have been doing. So, very congratulations on that. And
Thank
with
you.
that, I'm having the last question for Dr. Aruna. So, in your book, I Want a Boy, you challenge societal norms and biases in parenting. So how do you think parents can, navigate conversations about gender roles, expectation, and inclusivity? Whether addressing traditional biases or raising such children.
Okay, so my book, which is published by Vitasta Publisher, and I should thank now to Renu and my editor Deepthi. So it is again, it's not a book on parenting. It is a book. I Want a Boy is a sarcasm which is on our traditional way of thinking that uh, everybody, every couple or every grandparent want a son, a heir for their family. And this was a sarcasm, like, I want a boy, because in my practice, every single person, every single couple who would come to me, they either had a desire for second, if they had first daughter, second should be son, or if they had many daughters, so son should be there, one, or uh, sometimes they would come that where they can get female feticide or abortion, or where they can get selective embryo transfer for a boy, or so on and so forth, what all can be done. So this is the book about that. And here, and this book is, again, as Rashima also said, this is my diary. When I became a doctor, as soon as I started sitting in OPD, this was the constant desire from every patient. And then I was witnessing my senior doctors either guiding them, or somewhere I saw quacks doing wrong things uh, for gender selection or gender abortion and all those things. So and then I those girls, or those women who were coming to my OPD for this desire, or they had to undergo something wrong because of that, I started putting everything. I was penning down every story at night, because they were so painful. They were so it was actually really, really painful. So I could not actually keep it inside me, because it I my throat was choked. I used to cry after the after seeing the patient, that I am not able to help them, because either they are infertile, or they are not able to produce children, or they are not able to produce son. And they, even after we tell them that you would die on table if you produce any more children, they would still go and try to deliver a son, orphaning their girl children who were at home. So this was about that. And this all these stories are very short story, 1 page or 2 page story. Each story is real, is of my patient from government hospital. I was in Delhi government hospital. And and that's what was like, when there was a lady. I asked her, you are a daughter too, and why do you want a son? You could could educate yourself, or you can educate your girls now, instead of them also having the same kind of life. You Why don't you educate them, and why don't you stop producing children, because it is actually robbing your health and all. And they would say that because they are not educated, because they are not earning, because they are treated as housemaid at home, and their girls are abused at, and they are not like they people are not sending them to school, no vocation for them. And that's why they are not able to do, even if they would want to do best for their girls. And they had only one desire, that if this who is a boy, and it is an elixir for them, and it might change their life. So I have seen this in lower socioeconomic, uneducated people, and I was seeing them in affluent class, and people who were rich, and they wanted an heir for their property and for their business. And it was no bar education or whatever. So these stories I started from government, and then when I was in good corporate hospital, went on and on. And and then when my daughter also became a doctor, a gynecologist, she, even today when she's in her final year again in Delhi college, she's also seeing the same stories of gender preference and gender killing. uh, so these are painful stories, but then again there is a silver lining here, because when I see today's couples, today's younger couple, who, girl and boy, both are educated, both are from a college, they chose each other, they have companionship, they want a girl, and they want second also a daughter, because they feel that two daughters are a very good combination. So I can see that education is the key, which is changing the whole society. And even if it is 0.01%, but change is clearly seen. And I can see that if everybody is educated and every girl is given vocation and they are able to earn for themselves and they can have their own say, the society is going to change and girls would have the same place what boys have, and those they should have same rights. And yes, I would applaud younger couples, younger boys and girls, that they actually want girl as a child, as a first or second, and they are celebrating them. And I feel so happy that in my lifetime I'm able to see this change.
Such a strong message, Dr. Aruna, which is a perfect ending for the session. So, with that, we are at the end of discussion, and thank you so much, everyone, Rashima, Dr. Aruna, and Romal, for joining us and sharing your valuable insights over the session. So, and we would be looking forward to your upcoming works, and would definitely be interested to collaborate on the Frontlist platform. With that, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.